Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Muhammad Amir Akmal bin Amri and today I will be presenting a research article entitled Special Heterogeneity of Heavy Metals Contamination in Soils and Plants in Hefei, China. The study was conducted by Qianjin Zhang and his colleagues and was published in Scientific Reports in 2019. The research investigates how the concentration of two heavy metals, lead and cadmium, vary in different parts of Hefei city and how these metals accumulate in both soils and urban trees. Before discussing the study, let's first understand the background. So heavy metals are environmental pollutants that remain in the soil for a very long time because they cannot easily degrade. As cities become more urbanized and industrial, so activities such as vehicle emissions, industrial production, improper waste and disposal increase the amount of heavy metals released into the environment. So in this study, the researchers focus on lead or Pb and cadmium or Cd because both are toxic to plants, animals and humans. Fortunately, urban green belts and trees have the ability to absorb these pollutants through a process known as phytoremediation, helping to improve environmental quality. Although previous studies have reported heavy metal pollution in many cities, there was still limited information about how lead and cadmium contamination varies among different urban land use types. And researchers also wanted to understand whether urban or development influence heavy metal accumulation and whether urban trees can effectively absorb these pollutants. Therefore, this study investigated the spatial distribution of lead and cadmium in soils and Magnolia grandiflora trees across Hefei City, China. So the study has 5 main objectives. First, to measure the concentrations of lead and cadmium in soil samples. Second, to determine the concentrations of these metals in Magnolia grandiflora branches. Third, to compare contamination among 4 different land use types, namely roadside, industrial, residential, and park green belts. And fourth, to examine how contamination changes with increasing distance from the city center. And finally, the researchers wanted to determine the relationship between heavy metal contamination in soil and its uptake by plants. Next, the researchers proposed 4 hypotheses before conducting the study. They expected roadside green belts to have the highest heavy metal contamination because of heavy traffic activities. They also predicted that parks will have the lowest contamination since they are generally less exposed to pollution source. In addition, they believe that older urban areas closer to the city and center will contain higher levels of heavy metals due to long-term human activities. And lastly, they hypothesized that higher soil contamination would result in greater accumulation of heavy metals in Magnolia grandiflora. So next, we move to study area. So this study was carried out in Hefei City, located in Anhui Province in eastern China. The city has a subtropical humid monsoon climate and has experienced rapid urbanization over the past several decades. Between 1949 and 2005, the population is increased from approximately 53,000 to more than 7 million people, while the urban area expanded dramatically. Because of this rapid development, Hefei provides an ideal location to study effects of urbanization on heavy metal pollution. So next we move to the materials. And for this research, soil samples were collected from 48 different sampling sites representing 4 types of green belts. Soil was collected at depth of 40 centimeters, and the researcher also collected branches from Magnolia grandiflora, which was selected because it is a common urban tree with a long lifespan, large biomass, and excellent potential for phytoremediation. This characteristic made it suitable for studying heavy metal accumulation. Next, we move to methodology. The methodology began by establishing 48 sampling plots across Hefei City. Soil samples from 3 locations within each plot were combined into one composite sample. The researcher also selected 3 healthy Magnolia grandiflora trees at each site and collected 2-year branches from the direction of each tree. In the laboratory, heavy metal concentrations were measured using acid digestion followed by ICP-AES analysis. Finally, the data were analyzed using linear regression ANOVA, and bootstrap analysis in R software to determine significant relationships and differences. And the results for this research, the results show clear differences in heavy metal contamination across the study area. So lead concentrations in soil were highest in roadside green belts, indicating that traffic activities are the main source of lead pollution. So in contrast, parks has the lowest lead concentration. Cadmium show a different pattern, where its concentration decreased as the distance from the city center increased. So overall, these findings suggest that traffic mainly contributes to lead pollution, while cadmium accumulation is more closely related to long-term development. And next, we move to discussion. So the findings indicate that heavy metal contamination in Hefei city is strongly influenced by urbanization and land use type. Roadsides show the highest lead contamination because vehicles continuously release pollutant through exhaust emissions, brake wear, tire wear, and dust deposition. Meanwhile, older areas near the city center contain higher concentration of cadmium because they have experienced longer periods of urban development, greater traffic density, and larger populations. So the study also found that Magnolia grandiflora absorb lead and cadmium from contaminated soils, demonstrating its potential as an effective species for phytoremediation and urban environmental management. Next, I think we should know how the importance of Magnolia grandiflora. So one of the most important findings of this study is the role of Magnolia grandiflora itself. So the researchers found that this tree can tolerate polluted environments while accumulating significant amounts of lead and cadmium. So despite growing in contaminated soil, the trees remain healthy, making them highly suitable for urban greening projects. Therefore, planting the species in polluted cities could help to reduce heavy metals contamination naturally through phytoremediation. So next, we move to the conclusion. So in conclusion, this study demonstrates that heavy metal contamination is closely related to urban land use and development. Roadside areas experience the highest lead pollution, while cadmium contamination was more strongly associated with older urbanized regions. The study also confirmed that soil contamination directly affects heavy metal accumulation in plants, and most importantly, Magnolia grandiflora show excellent phytoremediation potential, making it a valuable tree species for improving environmental quality in rapidly developing cities. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope this presentation has provided a better understanding of how urbanization influences heavy metal contamination and how urban trees can contribute to environmental sustainability. I will be happy to answer any question. So that's all from me.